Hey guys, here we're back in Roblox Studio, and in today's video I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make beams like this. So right here is one of my beams I have, and basically this is another one right here. This was my first ever beam. It's not that good, but here's one of my other ones, and this one's way better. I'm basically teaching you guys how to make this, and from this you can make a lot of other stuff. Like I have some other stuff over here, which maybe I'll do some other tutorials on how to make that, but I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make something like this. So basically what I did for this was I used particle emitters and beams. So for beams though, it's mainly about the beam. So this thing right here in the center is the beam. The particle emitter is just what makes it look cooler, like make it look like it's actually doing something. So yeah, but for the beams, what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna have to have two attachments. So it's these beams right here attached to this one, an attachment here and an attachment over here. So I have two parts. I have two spears, and I attached one to I put one attachment on each spear, but you don't have to. You could put both the attachments in one and then just move the attachment over here. But you could also do what I did, and then you have to add the attachments inside the beam and right here in the attachment section. And depending on which attachment you place, that's the direction the beam's going to be going. So if I switch these around, the beam would be going from this side to this side instead of this side to this side. And basically what you're going to want to do is you're mainly just going to want to mess around with the settings. There's also something I'd recommend. I'm going to say it later for the particle emitters, but for the beams you're just going to mainly want to mess around with the settings. So one important thing I would say to do is turn off light influence, because then you cannot use brightness. Like look here, I'll show you. If I add one light influence, you cannot use brightness. So I'd say to always turn this off. It's always naturally on, so I'd say to always turn it off and add in your brightness. And then from here you can edit your brightness to make the beam look brighter. The only reason my beam's this bright is because I have like 7 of them I just duplicated. So yeah, and then the reason the color is much brighter than it is because I have like 7 duplicated beams. And then light emission, you don't have to set this to 1, but you can, and it just makes it like more neon kind of like color like this. So that's why it's brighter than this color right here. And then your texture, so I'd recommend getting like some kind of beam pack or something, but this is the texture I used right here, and it was really thin. Like let me go ahead and just delete all these ones right here. Like look how thin it is. That's how thin the actual beam is, but I made it much thicker by adding this so you could see it better, because even if I add like width right here, it's not going to do anything. So yeah, you want to also know when you actually need to duplicate your beam and when you don't. So yeah, and then your texture length is just going to be how long it is. Like I think the I was going to say faster, but no, the longer you put it, the faster it moves. So like let me set this to like 5. I think one of them will get faster. Yeah, you can't really see it that well because there's a lot of other ones, but if I were to set them like all to 5, the beam would move much faster. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep it at 2, because the faster your beam is, it's just gonna be like faster. I like it at this speed. And then your texture mode, you're basically gonna want to always keep it at stretch, but you can switch it to static and wrap. But static and wrap, oh wait, you can't tell. Let me just change this setting in every single one, but right here. So wrap does this, so you can't see it because they're pretty close together, but it usually adds a big separation and makes them way smaller. Same with static. There's just a tiny difference between static and wrap. I don't know what it is really, but I just don't really use any of them in the first place. So I'd say keep them both at stretch, or just keep them all at stretch. And then your texture speed, this is how fast your texture is going to be moving, just like the texture length affects this. So the longer the texture is, like it launches it faster kind of. I think, I don't really know how it works that much, but the texture speed, you can edit that too. Transparency, you don't really need to edit this that much. Like your beam, unless you want your beam to be ending a little bit transparent or something, you can go right here to the 3 dots and change that. But I wouldn't say you should have like beams ending transparent for some reason. It's more like particle emitters you want to do that. And then your attachments, I already said that earlier. In the curve size, so what curve size does is it's going to make the beam curve. So if let me just go grab all the beams right here, because yeah, I have just so many. And then add a curve of 5. It's going to curve, and let me add this to, I think, -5 right now. No, it's 5 again. Okay, so it's going to add this like tiny curve. You can't see it that much because it's not that big, but right here. So I'm just going to set them back though. And you're going to mainly want to use these for, I'd say like force fields or something like this. Right here, I used beams. I'll go over like how to make this probably in another tutorial, but I curved it there to make that force field thing. And then right here, yeah, I just didn't curve it. And then face camera, you pretty much want to be on, because then if someone like looks at it from the top, it's gonna look weird. So I would say keep face camera on, and it's a beam, so it's not gonna ever look weird if you don't turn off face camera. It's not gonna like be weird if you turn it on, so it's gonna look fine. So I'd say always turn on face camera unless you have some reason to turn it off. So yeah. And then to make it look like this when like the beam hits, okay, so I have this one right here. It's called, I just named it. Also, another important tip to know is always name your particle emitter so you know what each one does, because I always am forgetting and just stuff like that. I'm just like always forgetting what they are. So if you actually were to name them, like I named this one, but I've forgotten on other ones, and then I forget which one it is, and I have to go look through every single little particle emitter or just beam to figure out. There's only one beam in here, so that's why I just didn't name them, and it's all just duplicated. There's not multiple, but I have like 4 particle emitters or something. So yeah, and then for your particle emitter, this one is called a flip book particle emitter. So they're gonna look like this. You basically always set them to one shot, and they're gonna be like this. I have a little flip book pack or like explosion pack right here that I use, but this is what flip books look like basically. And you don't have to use them. I just use it to emit it to like make it like kind of seem like this is what's shooting it better. I don't know, but yeah. And I would say always add your particle emitters under attachments. You don't need to, but you should, because it keeps it more centered in like the part, and you can just move the particle emitter easier. And then here I have my other part, and I have 4 attachments. This attachment's for this one that has nothing under is the one that is the attachment for the beam. And then all these other ones have what is it called? All these other ones have a particle emitter under it. So basically, big bubbles right here has this just stuff right here, just has these like, you see these right here, it has these just like more circle big ones that are more transparent. And that tip I was talking about earlier that I was going to say now is to get plugins for particle emitter. So I have this plugin right here. It's probably one of the more popular ones. It just shows me where it's going to emit, and it lets me change the size and transparency easy and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll say get this plugin. It's pretty good. This one's called like it's not going to show up over here. It's like row S particle editor or something like that. I don't know, but I would say get plugins to make it easier, especially this one. There's other ones though that emit. Like there's specific ones that like emit once or something, but I don't see what's the point in that, because you could just get this one and emit once also. So there's no point in that really. But yeah, this is what the big bubbles are. So I basically made them spread out because there's a spread angle. And yeah, and then yeah, just turn off light influence again. I added light emission just to make it more like visible brightness. And then so you see how it says number sequence here? That means at the start it's like bigger and are smaller, and at the end it's bigger. So to do that, you can either hit the 3 dots right here. If you click on it, you just can't see it because I don't have it clicked on, or you can use this plugin right here. It's super easy to use it with this. And then the squash, I wouldn't say things usually need to get squashed, unless like the only things that usually need to get squashed are beams, not particle emitters. So I wouldn't say you have to mess with the squash that much. But then like if you're, or like, I don't think beams have squash, but like, I mean, like if you're trying to make something like lines like that over there, and you're using a particle emitter to do it, then you're going to want to squash it. But I don't feel like there's a reason to use squash really most of the time. And then texture and then transparency I added just so it's like you could see the smaller ones better. And then the lifetime. So the lifetime, there's a comma here because that means it can either last 0.5 seconds or 1 second. So it's like more varied, seems more realistic, you know. And then rotation, you only need rotation on certain types of things. You don't usually need it that much, like unless you're trying to make auras or something. I feel like rotation speed, I feel like you use this one a lot whenever you're making something like this, like if you're trying to make it spin, or some auras, that also works too. And then the speed, this is how fast it's moving. So if I were to slow this down, it would last way shorter because the lifetime, the only reason it lasts this long is because of the lifetime set to this and speed set to this. And then the spread angle, you want to make this based off of how like big you want your beam to look. Like this beam looks really big and just looks powerful because I made the spread angle big, and I made them emit really fast. Like I have the rate set to 100, so 100 of these are always trying to like generate, like look right here how much chaos there is right here just going on right here, because how many are trying to emit at once without them dying off. And then you don't need to do flip books for certain things. Like there's the certain ones like this are flip books, but for every other particle emitter you don't need to be messing with the flip book section really. And the emitter shape, I don't feel like you really need to change this much either, but this just changes the shape. Like I think if I change the filler, it's gonna emit differently. Like I don't know where it's emitting now, but if I were to change it, it's just gonna emit somewhere else or something, or in a different way. And then this section, the particles, you don't really need to mess with this that much. The only thing I feel like you need to mess with is lock to part and time scale. You want lock to part if your particle emitter is like moving a lot, if you want to, so, like, have it just be exactly on top of it, because if you don't have this on, there's gonna be a little bit of delay when you're moving the part that has the particle emitter on it. And then the wind effects drag thing, that's if you have the Roblox wind thing enabled, which I don't feel like you need to enable this. Like, there's ways to do it without using the actual Roblox wind, so I don't feel like you need to. This the acceleration, this changes, so it's like it gets faster over time, but these are for like longer particle emitters. Like this one doesn't last that long, so you're not gonna really need that. And then yeah, from there I basically duplicated and made this one right here, the small bubbles. So if you see these right here, these smaller ones, I basically duplicated the big ones and made the smaller ones. And basically these have, like, they're just more brighter and just easier to see, so it seems like the beam's more powerful destroying it. And it basically has like all the same settings and stuff like that. It's the same thing to make it. Like, VFX isn't that hard, it's just like you gotta mess around with stuff, and it does take time to learn still, but I did figure it out and I'm hoping to teach you guys now. So basically what I did for the front bubbles is I changed the direction it's shooting from, or you can either change the direction the particles are shooting from, or you can change the way the attachment is facing. I don't think I changed the direction, I think I just rotated the attachment, I'm not sure though, but yeah, you can just do that. And then yeah, there's your mission direction. Here I changed the lifetime, there's just a tiny bit of a difference, so it's like a little bit, like, look right here, you can see that sometimes they go a little here, so yeah. And the rate's 200 because there's only one particle emitter versus there's two over here, so it's like you can see this better. And I made these transparent, so it's just because like this is the main thing, I just made it seem more realistic by adding this, and all this other stuff is the same, so there's not really much. And yeah, I'd recommend getting this plugin. Let me check what it's called actually. Okay, I found it right here. It's called the ROS particle editor. Yeah, this is the one you probably want. I have some other plugins in here. Yeah, but that's really the main like VFX plugin you want. It's for particle emitters. You can't use it for beams, but also most of the time when you're doing VFX, you're going to use particle emitters, and like do 3D modeling like this right here. This little anime ball thing right here, I did this in Blender, and I actually did make it like rotate. But yeah, this is in Blender, so I'd say you mainly use particle emitters and Blender when you're doing VFX, but you do use beams sometimes, like when you're trying to make like a shooting ability, like a beam ability or something like that, then you're going to use beams. But most of the time for just classic VFX, you're just going to use like particle emitters and other stuff like that. So I hope you guys learned something about beams and particle emitters. This is going to end my video. Subscribe to the channel. Bye.